Hello, my name is Braxton, and today I'll be giving a speech on Benjamin Franklin. Now, many of you will know him as a great man who had many different types of effects on our economy and our country as a whole. But I'm willing to bet he didn't know how he grew up and some of the things about him that I know now. And today I'm going to get together with those with you. So first of all, Josiah Franklin was Benjamin Franklin's dad, and originally he was married and had 7 kids with his wife. However, soon after she died, 6 months afterwards he was married to somebody else and had 3 kids with her, a total of 10, leaving Benjamin as the youngest. Now, there was also one sibling. 9 of them made it out of childhood. One of them, unfortunately, in an incident in the bathroom, slipped and did not make it. All of them made it out of childhood except for the one. Now, as Benjamin grew older, at the age of 12, he had finished his school and became an apprentice for his older brother. And while being an apprentice to him, his brother James was arrested for the type of printing that they were doing. And the way they got out of it was Benjamin, as an apprentice to his older brother, was therefore entitled to do whatever he said, and it was not his fault. Therefore, he did not suffer the punishments that his older brother did. And they also came up with documents to say that Benjamin was a free person and was no longer an apprentice to his brother. But in secret, they had a secret document that entitled him as an indentured servant who would continue to work for him, but they would never show anybody and only be between the 2 brothers. Now, Benjamin did not want to do this, so Benjamin fled and left his brother and completely distanced himself from everybody and became a stranger to his family. And his sister, who was 15, was planning on getting married. He told her that beauty is a great thing that she has, even though he hadn't seen her as a child. He knew that's what he had heard, that she was pretty. And he told her that the most important things are not only being a virgin and being pretty, but also the type of character you have as a wife. That'll make you much more valuable. See, Benjamin Franklin was a very wise man and had a bunch of different sayings. For instance, diligence is the mother of good luck, meaning nothing good happens by chance. You work for everything that you get in life. Another thing was time waits for nobody. Now, Benjamin Franklin did not sit around and wait. Benjamin Franklin made things happen, and it took a very long time. He had some very unfortunate circumstances. For instance, when he was traveling and trying to start his own printing company, he was not having very much success at all and was very poor for a very long time, and had to rely on others who he did not trust. He did not trust anybody. And he ended up falling in love with a woman, and he had a kid with her. But then after that, he decided to leave to try to continue his business. Now, meanwhile, he was gone for so long that she forgot about him and married somebody else, who we later found out may have had a previous wife before her, and also left her with a bunch of debt that she had already had due to her father passing away. Now, Benjamin Franklin, after he had came back, it would not have been legal for him to marry her due to the fact that she was already married, and her husband was apparently, there were rumors going around that he had died somewhere else in the world. Now, they could not confirm those because they didn't have enough money to hire inspectors to see if there was another wife or to find out if he was actually dead. But if Benjamin did come and marry her, and then he did come back, they had the right to take 30 lashings and be imprisoned for the rest of their life in jail due to that, especially due to bigamy if they were to have a kid. However, after a while, after keeping things under wraps, they decided they were going to get married anyway, and they did. Now, once they were married, they had a kid, but the problem was that Debbie, who was Benjamin's wife, was not the mother. Benjamin was the father, and nobody really knows who the mother was. They, I guess, agreed to keep it to a secret. There was not much inspection that could be done, but Debbie was not very happy to have a son that was not hers, that she was raising up. And meanwhile, during this process, Benjamin Franklin loved having a son, but continued to work hard in his business and taught his son everything he knew. Now, Debbie also had a kid eventually with Benjamin Franklin and loved him very much and was very pleased to have her own son. Unfortunately, he did not make it, and he ended up passing away and dying. Now, this hurt Benjamin and made him realize that how important his other son was to him, and this hurt Debbie because the only son that she could really have that would strengthen her relationship with her husband had gone and passed away, and she would not be able to have that relationship with him. Now, meanwhile, Benjamin Franklin has been working on a printing press, and he's been working for a man called Keimer, who hired him, who was supposed to be his rival, but hired him with a very handsome paycheck, and they did very well together. He wanted Benjamin to train the new people and told him that we're going to continue to do this together and wanted to raise them. Now, along the way, Benjamin realized that Keimer was just using him to raise up and train the new people better than he could, and then once he was done with that, he didn't need him anymore, he was going to let him go. So Benjamin went along with this plan. However, he would also talk to new customers, get them involved with him, and then talk bad about the people who was working with him. And then eventually, when Keimer decided to let Benjamin go, there was an outroar. And he gave Benjamin a 3-month notice, along with there was an argument in public, and they were not very happy. There was an outbreak. But Benjamin said, "You don't need 3 months, I'll leave right now." Now, Benjamin did not have much money. And he ended up meeting some friends by the name of Hugh Meredith. And what he did was his father started them a company that he had previously worked with Keimer, but then they ended up breaking it off, and he worked with Franklin instead. And they started doing well together, but then they were sued due to the fact that they were worried that people were going to be sued or in trouble for how Keimer and what he did to them. So their relationship it was problematic. And they avoided jail, but they were still sued and lost a lot of money. And now in order to bounce back from this, they continued to tried to work together. But the problem with Meredith is he resorted to alcohol and brought down the business because he kept going back to alcohol, and it left a bad reputation on the company. Now, however, Franklin felt indebted to him and wanted to help him because they were the ones who owned the company and gave him the opportunity to work for them. So he tried for a long time until eventually he realized that this was not going to work at all, and it was going to damage not only himself, but them and the company. And so he was going to resign. However, they did not want him to resign, and instead they said they would resign and hand the company over to him on an agreement that he would just pay some money and they would give him some supplies, and in the end they would even it out and say he had the company. Now, once this happened, Benjamin became slightly more successful and began working on his own and started training new people around him. Now, somebody by the name of George Bradford was working somewhere else in the world, and Benjamin Franklin took an apprentice under him and sent him to go work where he was, so that they would be rivals. And now, George Bradford at the time was in his late 80s and was not what he used to be. So as soon as Benjamin Franklin's apprentice went there, he quickly took over the whole area and became very successful and brought Benjamin Franklin a third of the money, since he paid for a third of the expenses for his apprentice to get set up there, and they had a mutual agreement. Now, Benjamin Franklin had many apprentices. Many of them went on to do very well because of the fact how well he trained them and the effort he spent with them. Now, Benjamin Franklin learned a lot of things through the troubles in his life. He learned that nothing comes for free, and he had to work very hard. He made himself a list, and he said countless things about how he was always going to be honest, he was never going to be negative to other people, he was going to speak his mind, but in a kind way, and that he was not going to let the pursuit of money distract him for what he wanted to do. Now, he was a very free man, as in the sense that he wanted to consistently travel and liked traveling the world.
I know, it's okay. Shh. Tell him I'll be there in a few minutes.
Where was I?
Traveling the world, something.
He liked to travel the world.
I think it was George Bradford, something about George Bradford.
His apprentice took over George Bradford.
Did you memorize the speech?
No.
Okay.
Like, I remember certain things I wanted to talk about, not the speech.
Okay.
How long is it?
I don't know, go ahead, keep going.
Well, like I said, Benjamin Franklin did like to travel the world, and that's where he set up many of his different printing properties. Now, he also developed a book called Poor Richard's Almanac, which is a very famous book with a lot of famous sayings that many people have heard of. Now, what many people don't know is that Richard Saunders was actually a dead person, a dead doctor who Benjamin Franklin took the identity of, just as a name in the book, so that it would be somewhat printed anonymously, but then also somebody he could give a character to, and also had an imaginary wife named Bridget, which he used as his own wife in the story Debbie, and he would relate to them, to the audience, and due to that, this was the first time where Benjamin Franklin stopped having to be poor and talked about how there were too many people buying his almanacs, and how, for once, his wife was able to have a pot and have something in it. They were able to have multiple pairs of clothes, and how things were starting to finally go together. He was very thankful for everyone who was buying his almanac. Now, there was a previous person who had written an almanac for the Godfreys, and Benjamin Franklin wrote them one as well. Now, the next year, they kept alternating, but the previous writer ended up getting it over him again, which is believed to have been because the Godfreys tried to set Benjamin Franklin up to marry with someone else before he met Debbie. And this was because they wanted him to take over the debts in case anything would happen. They would push it all on him, and they would not have to worry about it. And then Benjamin Franklin realized what they were doing, and it got cut off. But then later they reached out again with him to marry somebody else, and he did not want any part of that again. So this is why that he was not able to write his own almanac. It had to come up with his own brand, not theirs. which he therefore came up with Poor Richard's Almanac, which has a bunch of great sayings and which is very wise and helped build our economy and our constitution on many of the properties and things that we value today. For instance, like I said earlier, time doesn't wait. You don't wait for time. Time doesn't wait for anybody. If you just wait around, nothing will happen. And it talks about how if you work hard, you will be rewarded. But if you sit there and you just eat all the time and you'll become lazy, then not only will you lose money, you'll lose things that are important to you, but you also lose time that you will never be able to receive back, and you'll live with regret, and how that is very important not to do. And that also, you don't want to just be drinking all the time either, that you want to have water, wake up early, you work hard all day, you will feel satisfied, and it is a better thing that you can do. Now, Benjamin Franklin knew this and put this into his everyday practice, and was very well known as somebody who could diffuse arguments and was very peaceful and easy to make conversation with, because he was very humble and also tried to talk with other people and not talk bad about themselves, but also just have mutual conversations that were beneficial to both partners. And this is my speech on Benjamin Franklin.
Good. So what did you learn? I mean, I guess you talked about what you learned. What did you really like?
What did I like about this? I would say my favorite part about this was the two miniature books which you gave me, which were about the Poor Richard's Almanac, a lot of famous wise sayings that were in there, and then also the other book you gave me, which reminded me a little bit of Dave Ramsey, because it talked about how, there were similar things about driving the best car now isn't the best idea when you can drive the best car later. If you save your money now, you'll have more money later, and it's better. Benjamin Franklin had another famous saying where he said, it's better to go to bed hungry and not have debt than to wake up and have breakfast and be in debt. And that was something I thought was very interesting.
And what can you apply to your life based on what you learned?
Be very careful with how I spend and manage my money. For instance, spenders are not very good lenders typically, and if you lend, you will collect interest, and it is also beneficial for you. But also, that working hard in whatever you do is something that will benefit you, no matter where you are in the world and where you want to be.
And what is something that everyone can benefit from learning about Benjamin Franklin?
I would say the way he was determined in his persistence to find what he wanted.
Okay, very good job. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Braxton, Derbyshire.
All right, nobody's going to see this.